Hi, my name is Tammy,
And I'm Jen.
and they call us Woo.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. We are walking back into the topic that we were talking a little bit last week about. We talked about smudging and using sage last week. This week, we're going to talk about clearing
Mhm.
and all kinds of other methods. And Tammy has some terms that I don't know, which she's like the woo master today. So
It's the
this
one
is
thing that
exciting.
I know that you don't know.
No, she knows lots of things that I don't know. She knows things that I know that I don't know that I know, but she knows, if that makes sense.
Yep.
It does not make sense. But we were going to talk about just the different types of clearing that you can use and how you can use them in your life and how you can clear stuff. So I'm
hmm
going to let Tammy go into the term that I was like, what is that? I think I know what it is, but I'm not sure for sure. So she's going to start with that.
Okay. So I was referring to a bowl burning ceremony or burning bowl ceremony, one of the two. And Jen was like, "What's that?" And I was like, "I'm positive you know what this is. It's just a different terminology for it, I think." So I kind of looked it up to see if I could figure out if there was specific roots to it. I'm not entirely sure. I think it's just a generalized term that's used for any type of ceremony where you are putting something, you're writing something down, and it's something that you want to release. So all it is you have your bowl, and you can add whatever you want to that ceremony. Sometimes people will start by talking a little bit about it. Sometimes people will burn sage or some another clearing herb to try to clear things out beforehand. But it's just taking any type of vessel. I mean, it could even be your fire pit outside, and writing down the things that you want to release,
Okay.
setting your intention around it, putting it in there, letting it release up to the ethers. So,
Oh, I do this all the time.
exactly. That's why I was like, I'm pretty positive you know what this is.
I think that I just didn't know what it was because I have a hard time saying the word bowl. I was telling Tammy, I say it weird, bowl. But
If it
okay.
makes you feel better, I used to not be able to pronounce the word towel. I
Owl.
said tall, and I didn't
Oh,
understand when my family was like, "You're saying it wrong." I'm like, "No, I'm not." So I say, I don't know. I can say it
balls
now.
and
It's
bowls.
fine.
Well, I like it. And actually, so I have used that type of clearing for myself for a really long time. I
Mm-hmm.
used to hold ceremonies for friends and family in my yard at my old house, and we had this gigantic fire pit. And I would have everybody write down like all the things that they wanted to release, and we would roll them up, and then everybody one by one would go and like intentionally set them in the fire.
Mm-hmm.
um and it was this beautiful ceremony because
Mm-hmm.
people had the opportunity to um be held in the container of all the people who were around the fire, but they were also holding space for themselves to like clear and specifically get rid of, like, put the things in the fire to be burned away.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that.
And
That's one of my
interestingly
favorites.
enough, I mean, that is even a thing that when you go into the world of traditional psychotherapy and stuff, I've heard stories of people who their therapist told them, because of the very visual way that you are putting something down on a piece of paper, you are writing it down, you're putting your focus onto that thing, and then you're actually watching it burn up and go away, that it can be a very releasing thing, if there's something that you're having a hard time letting go of. So I think it's something that's everyone can kind of relate to, but there is something really empowering and something that feels like a really good release when you're actually watching it and understanding what it is that you're trying to let go of, because we all have
Yeah.
things that we want to clear out of ourselves or our lives, things that we struggle with, that any amount of assistance will be great. And as you said
Yeah.
in the last episode, when the smoke is a very powerful thing too, because it's bringing it up into the ethers. So if you're imagining, whether you believe it's angels or guides or family members who have passed or whoever is up there and is on your side,
Hmm.
it's giving it to them in order for them to be able to not only take some of the burden off of you, but like we said in the last episode, recycle it. It's
Yeah.
the tin can of energy. We're going to
Yeah.
turn that into a new thing. And
Yeah.
that's beautiful.
Yeah. Well, and so I used to also do gratitude with those types of ceremonies, where everything that you wrote down on your piece of paper, you found one reason to be grateful that that was part of your life,
Mm-hmm.
like something positive that you've gained from either knowing about that issue that you're letting go of, or
Mm-hmm.
so it was, again, going back to what I said last episode about filling that space with gratitude, filling that space with something joyful, peaceful, happy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when you are writing things down on that piece of paper to clear it, and you can find something or a reason to be grateful for it, it helps you clear it faster because now you have gratitude to hang on to instead. You have
Mm-hmm.
something joyful to hang on to instead. Um, so if anybody wants to try that, it's super, super powerful. It's helped me
It
a lot
is.
in my life. I bawl my face off when I do those ceremonies every single time, but
Well,
it's
and it's nice
really
when you have
cathartic.
a community with you doing it too,
Yeah.
because if you choose to speak about it afterwards, you can.
Yeah.
And you can allow everybody else to kind of have that same experience with you of cheering you on, being supportive of you while you're supporting yourself and supporting them. It's a
Yeah.
very, yeah, it offers that connection that we all really want and enjoy too. It leaves you feeling a lot better.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the maybe complicated words, but not
Yeah.
complicated actions. Bowl burning ceremony. I know we were going to
Cool.
talk about some other things too,
Hmm.
like some of the other clearing herbs that are commonly used, like
Yes.
sweetgrass and Palo Santo. Do you want to talk a little bit about those?
Yes. So for those who are watching, I have props again. I always have props. So, I have sweetgrass braids that I use. I don't specifically use my sweetgrass for clearing though. I use it with my sage. So clearing, and then the sweetgrass is like bringing in balance and groundedness and connecting you to Mother Earth and Father Sky and yourself, as well as bringing joy and balance and peace back into your life. So
You've
that
explained
one,
this to me before as bring the sweetgrass brings in sweetness, which
yes.
always made sense to me. And like, oh yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah. So this is one way that when I do clear, I make sure that I'm reminded to bring that gratitude piece in and fill that space after I clear. But I do them at the same time. So if I'm using my burning bowl, so my abalone shell, I'll put the sweetgrass and the sage in the shell together and burn them together and have both of those intentions, like clearing and bringing the energy back in as I go around.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Palo Santo, bring my little basket of goodies next to me. Um, Palo Santo is holy wood. It is, my favorite is actually the Peruvian one. It smells more sweet.
It
So
smells
there's
so good.
the two that I have received in the past are from Ecuador and from Peru. So there's a lot of controversy around Palo Santo and it being harvested in a way that's not sustainable. So because it is holy wood, there's a very specific way that it's harvested. If it's used for ceremonial purposes, by indigenous people, it is the Palo Santo trees actually collapse in the forest and they sit there and they have to be on the forest floor for a certain number of years before they can use it in ceremonial purposes. Um, and so what was happening for a long time is people were harvesting it and harvesting it all gone.
Oh.
And to sell to the public who was just going and burning it willy-nilly and not following any traditions, not being respectful of the resources that they were given.
Mm-hmm.
So for ceremonial use, like you would use the traditional holy wood Palo Santo. There are, however, two different types of Palo Santo trees. There's one that grows much more rapidly that sustainable growers have started using for commercial use Palo Santo.
Okay.
So I would say if you go into a store and you are purchasing Palo Santo, talk to them about um, the sustainability of the source that they're getting this from. If they're getting
Mm-hmm.
it from like a family grower in Ecuador, Peru, there's some other places that you can get it as well. The Peru kind smells better, just so you know. Um, talk to them about where they're actually getting it from and if they
Mm-hmm.
know. Because if they are being harvested from forests, chances are they're not doing it sustainably. And it's limiting and depleting resources for people in the area who are actually using it for ceremonial purposes
Sure.
rather than just, um, I don't know, common use, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but just like anything else, just make sure you're being respectful of
Mm-hmm.
where you're getting it from and you know like what's happening with the herbs and everything that you're using.
Yeah.
And I just love this stuff so much. I do. It's
I
one of my favorite.
totally get it. Me
Um,
too. It smells so good.
yes, and Palo Santo is actually used for clearing and for bringing joy back in. So it is one of the things that you can use for both. You don't have to mix anything, and you would just light the end of it's just like a little stick. So it looks like a piece of wood. Sometimes people are like, "You're just burning a piece of wood. What the heck are you doing, you crazy lady?" Um, but it's holy wood. So you actually light the end of your stick on fire and you hold the fire under it for at least 4 to 6 seconds, maybe 10 seconds until it actually is a flame.
Right. You want to
And
be
you,
lighting the resin is what really ends up burning and causing that
mhm, yep,
wonderful
wonderful
smell.
smell.
Yes.
Yes.
It kind of
And
reminds me of like a really good sandalwood smell. Like there's
oh,
sandalwood from India, I think, that has that really like rich, sweet smell that kind of reminds me
mm,
of that.
yummy. I love
Right?
sandalwood too.
Mm-hmm.
But so you want to make sure that you leave it lit for a little bit before you, I don't ever blow mine out. Um, one of the traditions that I was taught in, you don't blow your energy onto something that you're going to be clearing with. You wave it out
Mm,
just in case you are carrying some energy that you wouldn't want to put into your
okay.
clearing stick.
Carefully,
Um,
please don't send sparks all around your living room.
yes, you just want to lightly wave it so that it blows out. Otherwise, you can like fan it with your hand. Um, and it should blow out fairly easily. If you are going to blow on it, just set the intention that any of your yuckness is not going to get into your Palo Santo. Um, but yeah, so you would use this like you would any other smudging agent, as I call them. Yeah, you would just walk around and use the smoke. If you don't leave it lit for a long enough amount of time, it's not going to continue smoldering and smoking.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of have to play with that depending on how big your piece of wood is. Um, because if it's some of them, some places when you buy them, they're like really, really thick, chunky
Mm-hmm.
pieces of wood and they take forever to light on fire. Um, so again, just play with it and see what works for you.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing aside from sweetgrass and Palo Santo is resins. So like tree resins, um, just kind of like tree sap. Well, it is like tree sap. Um, but there's different resins that you can buy that you have to like light a little. They sell these little teeny tiny charcoal discs. They come in a tube. There's like 10 of them in a tube. I think it's 10 in a tube. But they're just little black charcoal discs and you have little tongs. It's like you're having a mini barbecue for Barbies. I don't know. But you have these tongs and you hold the charcoal and you light the charcoal underneath and then you drop these little pieces of resin um on top. So like frankincense and myrrh, those are true resins. A lot of people are familiar with those
Mm-hmm.
from like traditional Catholic ceremony, like different spiritual and different um traditions in the church,
Mm-hmm.
they'll use different resins in their that's not a ceremony. Why can't I think of the right word? Tammy. Um either way, they use them.
Services?
Services. That's not the word I was thinking of, but
Okay.
that works. Um I don't know why I can't think of what it is, but they'll use those when they are walking around to clear the space. They'll use resins.
Mm-hmm.
Um and so like frankincense and myrrh and copal, there's a lot of different ones.
Mm-hmm.
Amber, oh, amber smells delicious, just so
Yeah.
you know. But they get really, really hot. So you have to either use a metal bowl to burn them in because that charcoal disc will shatter your abalone shell or bowl that you put it in.
Mm-hmm.
So you need a metal bowl. Um, so that it doesn't do that. And then you just don't touch the metal because you don't want to burn your hand off.
Yeah.
But the resin like melts and then it smokes and it's delicious smelling. However, if you get too big of a piece of resin, it will continue smoking for a really long time. So very, very important for you to open your windows because
Mm.
if you are in an apartment, a shared home, any of those things, everyone will know that you are using that and you will probably set off all of your smoke detectors. So, small pieces of resin, small pieces of resin, and make sure you're not by a smoke detector because it will not end well.
Well, thank you for that little extra bit of advice. It's
Yeah,
kind of
of
interesting
course.
as we're talking about resins. I was just talking to an herbalist friend of mine not that long ago. We were talking about resins and why they are so powerful and healing because oftentimes the resin is the result of an injury to the tree.
Mhm.
So basically, all of its healing resources are in that liquid, which is super
Yep.
cool to think that it's so they make essential oils and stuff from that too. We were actually talking about Copaiba, which is a essential oil I like to use. It's really good for muscle tension and pain and stuff like that. So when I'm mixing up some magic at work, sometimes I'll use some of that. And
And
she's like,
opening you up spiritually.
yes.
Yes.
Um, so when I'm mixing up some magic for people at work, I was talking about that oil, and she's like, "Oh, I don't think I've heard of that." So I was telling her it was a resin, and we got in this whole conversation about resins and why they're so potent and powerful. So
Hmm.
anyway, I just thought that was cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I didn't think about that one.
yeah, it
I've
made so
never
much sense
seen
when
that
she
as a
explained it.
Yeah, and I've never seen that as a resin that I can burn. I want that to be a resin I can burn. I have the essential oils, but
Oh,
now I want to find
now you're
that.
on a mission,
Yeah, now I'm on a mission.
well, look,
Anybody knows where to get that? Tell me, please.
right? Put it in the
Yeah.
comments.
Yeah, yes,
Um,
please.
So let's talk a little bit about other things, maybe a little bit more common things like salt. Salt is a huge one. There's a lot of people who have salt lamps in their room. There's a lot of people who think they're really cool, but they don't always understand how powerful salt really is at clearing and cleansing.
Yeah.
So what is your what are the ways that you utilize salt for clearing?
So I use salt in a lot of different ways. So I do salt baths
Mm-hmm.
for myself to clear the energy from my own body and to help support my system in clearing anything that I'm trying to clear out, whether it's something internally or something emotionally,
Mm-hmm.
spiritually, I'll use it that way. But I also use it for, well, there's two other ways that I use it typically. I used to in the office when we would do healing work with people who had a lot of darker energies or a lot of um, trauma going on in their life, we would leave a bowl of salt out in the space to absorb any low vibrational energies that were in the space. Because salt is really, really good at absorbing and transmuting energies. Um, uh, I take that back. It's really good at absorbing the energies. You want to get rid of the salt if you're going to do that. Some people keep salt in a bowl by their bed at night, and before they go to sleep, they will throw. like energetically throw, but a lot of people will pretend like they're throwing it in there. They'll throw anything that they don't want to carry with them anymore into that bowl of salt. And then usually every 3 to 4 days, maybe once a week, you want to get rid of that salt, but you don't want to get rid of it in your home. You want to bring it outside and get rid of it. So into a garbage can, you don't want to dump it into the grass because
Mm-hmm.
too much salt in an environment like that is going to kill things. So don't do that. Um, so you can use it that way, setting the bowl out. Or I also use it to clear my stones and crystals. So I lift it up for those who can see a little baggie of salt that is now looking like a little baggie of white powder. I'm sorry, everybody. I, what is wrong with me lately? I just keep saying things that are weird. Um, but I keep little baggies of salt with me for my stones and crystals. So if I know that my stones and crystals need to be cleared and I can't leave them outside in the moonlight, um, I will put them in baggies of salt. So the salt will absorb any of those energies that don't need to be sitting in my crystals. And then I get rid of the salt after a little while. I specifically carry this around if I'm using malachite stones or stones that absorb a lot of energies, um, because I know that they need to be cleared more often. So I'll just keep a baggie of salt in my purse and then I'll just stick my crystals in there so that they're cleared throughout the day and I don't need to worry about it because I know that that's where they are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a
What
lot
about you?
of I I like the use of salt lamps. I use some of those at home, some of those at work. I know that's a really common one that people see, the Himalayan salt lamps.
Hmm.
There is a reason why those lamps are generally using like regular incandescent bulbs because it actually warms up the salt a little bit,
Hmm.
which can help with the salt's effectiveness, and also help it. It's kind of like self cleaning process, I guess you could say.
Yep.
Um, but there's a lot of usefulness for salt when people talk about the salt lamps to help them sleep and stuff like that. There is actually this can't think of the word I'm looking for, but this effect that's happening with negative ions and positive ions when it comes with salt. So
Hmm.
it can actually help offset some of the like fuzz, the stuff that we get from all the energy that's moving around us all the time, whether it be like energy from all of the signals that we have going around everywhere all the time
Yeah.
that can be disruptive to the body, or even just our own energy, because there is an actual physical reaction that happens that salt can neutralize, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Salt is also super effective. In my practice, I have an infrared sauna that also people can do halotherapy if they would like. Halotherapy is just another word for salt therapy. So if anybody's ever heard of like a salt room that you would go to and sit in, um, they're beautiful. They usually have all this beautiful, salt around you and stuff. But what you're really actually doing is they're pumping with machines, they're pumping little particles of salt into the air and you're inhaling them. And it is extremely beneficial for respiratory health. They
Hmm.
discovered this a long time ago when people were mining salt, and they realized that these people were very healthy. They were really healthy. They had wonderful respiratory health. They didn't get colds and flus and all that other stuff. They didn't have the same problems that miners had of mining other resources. And they started to look into that a little bit more and realized how beneficial it was at cleansing the lungs. So I think in those aspects, I really enjoy it. I don't use it as much for clearing stones and stuff like that, but I know salt baths are really helpful. I know a lot of
Yeah.
people who work in caring professions or work with energy and stuff like that that like to do that when they get home, so they can any of the stuff they've been working on that day, in case they're taking any of that with them or their energy is off balance, they're just cleansing and neutralizing themselves again.
Yeah.
So that's usually how I use it, but I know it's a very a very powerful resource. And again, one that we want to make sure that we are being respectful of, just like any resources on the planet. We want to make sure that we are purchasing salt that is mined in a way that's respectful to the earth and stuff like that. There's all of these resources. Everything we're doing, we're talking about clearing this episode and last, is just make sure you're coming to it with that place of respect and intention too. Salt might seem like an endless thing, but just be respectful. It's another gift that we were given to be able to help not only cleanse our bodies and our energies, but make our food delicious. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I will
Unless
bring up.
you are the part of the Midwestern people that believes that salt is too spicy. There's those people. I am not
That
one
is
of
true.
them.
Salt and ketchup. It's so spicy. Um, I was gonna say, so with salt lamps, I would tell people if you have cats in your home,
Mm,
just be careful with salt lamps because there have been a lot of cases where cats are like, salt,
thank you.
lick, lick,
I forgot.
lick.
Any animals, yeah,
And
be careful.
yeah, and they really, really like it, and it can be detrimental to their kidney and liver function.
Mm-hmm.
So just be cautious if you have
Mm-hmm.
animals in your home that they're not like slurping on your salt lamp. You
Mm-hmm.
get there one day and you're like, where did half my salt lamp go? And there's little kitty bite marks in there. Yeah, just be careful.
Thank you. That is a really
Yeah.
good thing to bring up. I
Hmm.
forgot about that, but yes, thank you. Another thing that I know people use for clearing sometimes is certain types of essential oils. That just made me think about that because, again, be cautious. Essential oils, I think, are now a thing that a lot of people are familiar with, but people think of the word chemical as a bad word. Okay, chemicals happen in plants. Chemicals happen everywhere.
Hmm.
What an essential oil is the most concentrated form of the active chemical components that are in that plant. So everything that plant offers in the form of healing, or just the ways that it operates its own life, is concentrated into these essential oils. So one thing that we need to be aware of when we're using the essential oils is making sure that we're using them appropriately.
Hmm.
Just like with anything, too much of a good thing is sometimes not great.
Yeah.
Read your labels, make sure you know where the stuff is coming from. If you're using it around animals, make sure that they have an exit that they can take from the room, because some of them aren't super helpful for them. That being said, they can be really, really powerful in assisting us with clearing. So, I mean, you can get sage in an essential oil form. You can get lavender. You can get a lot of oils that are really, frankincense, a lot of oils that are really good for helping with our energetic and our physical
Yep.
bodies as well. But I would absolutely recommend make sure you look for a reputable company, and make sure you look for information. If the
Yep.
company puts out a good oil, they should have a lot of information about where the oil comes from, what's in the oils, all that kind of stuff too. That should give you a good idea of how
Yeah.
to use them appropriately. And oftentimes they'll tell you what things they're good for, so you
Yeah.
can pick which ones make the most sense for you.
Yeah. I agree with that. I used to have an aromatherapist who worked out of our office, and she was diligent about making sure that the oils that we were using um, were healthful and sourced
Mm-hmm.
appropriately. And she went out and toured facilities to make sure that she knew how they were doing things and talked to the people who formulated things.
Cool.
Um, so if you know an aromatherapist in the area, they would be a really good
Mm-hmm.
resource for you to figure out where to get your essential oils. Um, I I would be cautious about just buying them off the shelf in a store if you have not seen the information on those
Right.
products before you purchase them. Um,
Yeah, I would agree with that. And also, when you are purchasing the products, make sure that you are able to talk to the person who is selling them.
Mhm.
I mean, in some instances, you can find them everywhere now. In some instances, in the big stores, you might not necessarily be able to do that. Well, then you can do your own research at that point. Look up
Yep.
the company. Like you said, make sure you understand where it's coming from. A good company is always going to be transparent. The
Yep.
company that I like to use, I can get all information on the oil down to the batch and the chemical constituents in each oil.
Mhm.
Very transparent, very much about education, making sure that we're using them in a way that helps us. Also, for clarity, I know there's some debate about taking essential oils internally. There is not research really done on that. So, just maybe erring on the side of caution if you decide that you want to go that route. We don't necessarily know what happens when our stomach breaks down these oils,
Mhm.
but there is research done on applying them to the skin, which also, in case people aren't aware, is an excellent way to actually absorb things into your body and completely bypass your whole stomach and
Yeah.
the way that things break down. Um, it can be applied to the skin. It can be diffused into the room so you can inhale it. Um, there's a lot of different ways you do it, but even when you apply it to the skin, making sure that you are using some type of carrier oil, because another thing that can happen, you're using very powerful oils, you can become sensitive to it. You can have allergic reactions. It can be something that, might make your skin irritated. So when you use that carrier oil, not only is it helping with that little bit of a buffer, but it's actually holding it on your skin for a little longer, because the essential oil is made in a distillation process. It's not like a coconut oil or something. It does dissipate into the air. So when
Yep.
you're using that carrier oil, that's helpful too. I like to educate people a little bit on that because I feel like some of these things, a lot of people know about it, and maybe
Yep.
they don't know kind of the ins and outs of ways to use it that you can be sure it's more helpful for yourself.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and then a caution around your kids. So generally speaking, children under the age of about 2, you should be cautious about the oils that you use with them. Make sure that they are safe and it's
Mhm.
not something that's overwhelming for their little organs that are still developing.
Good
That being
point.
said, they are super excellent beneficial things. This is not to make anyone
Yeah.
scared of using essential oils, just understanding, hey, maybe I should read about this a little bit more so I understand how to use it in a way that will really help me.
Yeah.
um, I
Yeah.
know that even using it in some of these other ceremonial things, like using it in your burning bowl ceremonies or whatever, I mean, it can be components where you're assisting in other things too, in
Yeah.
other clearing ceremonies, making them a little more powerful.
Yeah. I like that you brought up kids, because one of the things that I have on my list to talk about for types of clearing is bells. And I typically will have parents use bells for clearing with their kiddos because they're an easy way and something that kids don't really have to learn how to use them. They just naturally want to ring bells.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm glad that you brought kids into it with the essential oil piece because there are a lot of things like kids get scared about things. Kids pick up energies. Kids are very, very sensitive to the energies around us. And a lot of the time we don't think about how we can teach our kids to clear their own energy field and
Mm-hmm.
how to clear energies around them. And so things like essential oils, like giving them a lotion that has essential oil in it that they could use when they're feeling stressed out, when they're feeling like their energy's not quite right.
Mm-hmm.
Those are good things to do. But the bells, I have a lot of friends who have small kids that are very sensitive to spirit activity and different energies in their house. And so at night, their kids will get really, really scared because they are picking up on all of that. And luckily, their parents know, hey, this is something that happens, and they can pay attention to that and see if it's because the kids are having nightmares or if the kids are if there's something else going on or if it is energy in the house or if they are sensitive to um spirits who are there.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we've taught a lot of those kids to do is they have a bell on, we let them pick out their bell so they know the tone, because some people will resonate with different tones, different frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
And so we let the kids pick out a bell. They keep their bell on their nightstand or their night table. And when they wake up and they feel scared, they set an intention that everything's going to be cleared around them and they ring their bell. Um, and for younger kids, if you just talk to them about, hey, when you ring this bell, it's going to help clear, it's going to help get rid of those feelings. It's teaching the kids that they have power. They can
Yeah.
use their power to clear this energy, to clear this emotion, to
Mm-hmm.
clear this feeling. And it's made a huge difference for a lot of these kids because they've taken their power back.
That's sweet.
They now know, like one of the kids was 2 when she started using this
Mm-hmm.
bell. And she would wake up in the middle of the night and she would just ring her little bell and she'd fall right back to sleep, like totally fine. Like, and the parents knew what was going on. If the bell rang more than once or twice in the middle of the night, they would go check, make sure. But otherwise, they knew she was just going to ring away whatever was going on and clear the energy in that space.
Mm-hmm.
And what the bell does is kind of like drums or singing bowls or any other sound instrument. It's actually shaking up the energy of that space so that it's easier to clear. So it's like um, if you have a giant stone, it's going to be really hard for you to move on your own. But if you break it into smaller pieces, it's easier to
Mm.
shift it out of the space.
That makes
So
sense.
you're breaking up the energy so that it's easier to clear. It's
Okay.
just little bite-sized chunks that you can just get rid
Cool.
of. So if you have kiddos, that might be a really good way for people to help work with their kiddos.
Yeah. I mean, I know there is just so many different options out there for clearing things.
Yeah.
Was there any other one you want to talk about? Because I'm certain we could have several more episodes about this, but is
Yes.
there any other one you want to talk about in
I
this
have
one?
one more,
Mm-hmm.
just one more easy one. Earthing,
Mm.
which a lot of people have heard a lot about earthing lately, about going outside and grounding. So
Mm-hmm.
grounding and earthing are the same thing. It's pretty much putting your little tootsies, your feet on the grass, on the ground, in the dirt outside.
Yes.
Um, it helps you just release all of that energy back into Mother Earth
Mm-hmm.
and get back into that balanced space.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in an area like you're in the middle of the city and you really don't have a lot of earth around you, you can bring pots of dirt or plants into your home and you can set your little fingers in those pots of dirt. You can put your toes in them,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you want to do just to bring yourself back into that earthy space. It's a
Yeah.
beautiful and
Reconnect.
really easy way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a lot of people do this on the beach as well. Like when they go on vacation, they're like, oh, it feels so good to have sand between my toes. And it's like, well, yeah, you're getting
Yeah.
grounded.
Well, and you think
So,
about when you're a little kid and how many little kids not only don't want to wear clothes, but are more than happy rolling around on the ground, barefooted,
yeah,
whatever. And they just,
squealing with joy.
they innately know these things. And the earth does have a specific energetic frequency that they are doing more research on, and they are showing that it's actually super healing. I actually have a device that I use in my business that is has pulse electromagnetic frequency, which is tuned to the same frequency of the earth. Pulse electromagnetic frequency is actually an approved medical device because it has been proven to speed up the recovery of muscle and bone tissue
Yeah.
that's been damaged. It's super cool, and we could get into a whole other thing about that. But there's legitimate benefits, not only connecting energetically with the earth and grounding yourself, bringing your energy back down, but you're getting something back. The earth is giving you this really wonderful frequency that's helping your body heal. So, how, like, simple but profound at the same time when you think of how often do we not touch the ground? We could go through our whole lives and not have any direct contact with our skin and the earth. But
Yeah.
how powerful that can be if we just allow ourselves to kind of get back into that primal thing. There's a
Yeah.
reason that it's always been something that people connect with. I
Yeah.
mean, certainly there's people out there that don't like the outdoors. I don't know many of them. But the reality is, I mean, I could look at the same tree every day. I'm not going to get sick of it and be like, that tree
No.
is beautiful. I can look at
Yeah.
the same grass. You know, right now where we're at, we're bursting into spring, just seeing the beautiful leaves and stuff like that. There's a connection there that feeds
Yeah.
your soul, but also heals your body. That's amazing.
Well, yeah. Yeah. Feed your soul by putting the soles of your feet on the ground.
Exactly.
Yeah. Get out there and get dirty, everybody.
Yes. Well, if
Yeah.
anybody has any other thoughts about this or anything they want us to discuss, this is certainly something that we will revisit because there's so many more things that you can do to clear and balance yourself. This
Yeah.
would be a great thing to continue to talk about. But
Yeah.
just some
Yeah.
little easy tips and tricks over the last few episodes for people who want to just try that stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. Well, thanks everybody for listening today. We'll see you next
absolutely.
week. Thanks everybody for listening. If you liked what you heard today, please subscribe and check the show description for the links to the show. We would love to hear your thoughts below on this episode, as well as anything that you'd like us to talk about on future episodes. Remember, everybody, you are unique just the way you are, and that is why they call us Woo.
Mm-hmm.